Hey guys, welcome to the August 2015 edition of Budget MTG. This is a monthly series I do here on the Nitsahon Magic channel, wherein I discuss a budget deck that is competitive with Tier 1, but is much under the budget of most Tier 1 decks. And this month we're looking at a Black-White Warrior aggro deck for Standard. The deck costs a little bit over $20, $22.25 basically. Here, I will show you. This is all the cards in a card hoarder, including the sideboard. And it's just, it's your typical aggro deck. With a warrior theme. It's a warrior aggro deck. As you can see, we have tons of, well, actually you can't see because it's sorted by color, not mana cost, but now you can see we have tons of 1-drops and 2-drops, a few 3-drops, and Utter End, or one of our removal spells, is all we have that's more expensive. So I'll go through and talk about each of the creatures first. We've got Dragon Hunter, who is a good 1-mana 2/1. He has protection from dragons, which is relevant with things like Stormbreath Dragon and Atarka being, somewhat present in the format. And he's also just a 1-mana 2/1. We also have Mardu Woe Reaper, who's a 1-mana 2/1 who can help us gain life and exile creature cards, both of which are relevant in this format. You can exile Death Mist Raptors, and gaining life against the burn deck is always a nuisance for them, especially if you have like 2 Mardu Woe Reapers in play. I also have 4 Blood-Soaked Champions, who's also a big nuisance for any deck who wants, who's running removal, which is all decks, because he doesn't usually stay dead unless he's been exiled by some effect. He's a 1-mana 2/1 who can't block, but can come back from my graveyard to the battlefield every turn I attack, as long as I pay 1 in a black. Then we have Battle Brawler, who's a 2-mana 2/2 warrior, but as long as I control a red or white permanent, he gets +1/+0 and has first strike. As you can see, we have 8 1-mana white permanents, so he's pretty frequently going to come down on turn 2 as a 3/2 with first strike. And we also have some 3-mana and some 2-mana white permanents, so he's going to have his bonus most of the time. Bloodshin Rager is a big key to the deck. Whenever he attacks, all my warrior creatures get menace, including him. That's a big deal in this deck because, we're swinging for a lot early, and then when a Bloodshin Rager comes down, my opponent has a really hard time stopping, the huge number of creatures we usually have. And then we also have Chief of the Edge, one of the warrior lords, who makes all my warriors get +1/+0, and she herself is a 2-mana 3/2, so that's a very good deal. Then we have Arishan Foremost, who's a 3-mana 2/2 with double strike, and whenever she enters the battlefield or attacks, a warrior I control gets double strike, so that can result in a lot more damage. I have a Singleton Mardu Strike Leader, who's a good top deck in the late game. 3-mana 3/2. Every time he swings, makes a warrior creature token, and he also has dash. And then Bloodshin Fanatic, who's a pretty big star of the deck because he can turn any warrior into a life point swing equal to twice what that warrior's power is, because I gain the life and my opponent loses the life. So those are all of our creatures. It's just a lot of hyper-efficient creatures with lots of synergies with warrior stuff going on, like Mardu Woe Reaper, Bloodshin Fanatic, Arishan Foremost, and Chief of the Edge and Bloodshin Rager. We also, of course, have removal in the deck. We have a Singleton Ultimate Price. It's not as good as it used to be. The Artifact deck is pretty big right now, and it can only hit like Whirler Rogue in that deck and not much else. Then we have 2 Banishing Lights, which are great because they can hit anything, including Planeswalkers. And we also have 4 Utter Ends, which can also hit anything but lands. And the Exile effect is actually pretty relevant in the format between Death Mist Raptor and Hangerback Walker. Plus being able to hit enchantments like in our main board is nice. And then I have a sideboard that is, important because I can side in Fate Forgottens in place of like Ultimate Price and 1 Utter End against artifact decks. I have Valorous Stance, which comes in a lot against Abzan because Siege Rhino is their big finisher, and it deals with that, and it can give my creatures indestructible. Hallowed Moonlight is good against Hangerback Walker and against token decks, because it stops them from coming to play. Duress is good against control, as always. Self-Inflicted Wound is another thing to side in against Abzan decks because it hits their Siege Rhinos. And then we have more Ultimate Prices, like against some opponents that are just heavily creature-based. We would just take out our Utter Ends for like 3 Ultimate Prices and maybe a Valorous Stance or something like that. And then we have Phyrexian Revoker to shut down problematic activated abilities. Anyway, that's our deck. It's a lot of fun to play. It's competitive with Tier 1. And it's only about it's a little over $20 to make. So I'm going to play 3 matches in the 2-man queues with it to show you how it does against those high tier decks. And thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.